weekend. Remember the way we used to move, dance all night like young lovers do. Your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, he'll get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me, baby. Smoke and mirrors, pretty lights. Another runaway city boy getting too high. But boys like you tell pretty lies. The 5 a.m. low in your eyes says your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, you get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent.
This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Hello and welcome to Broad Radio. I'm Jo Stanley. With me today, Nelly Thomas.
Hello,
Great to have you.
Jojo.
Oh, dolls, you know I love doing this show
How
with
are
you.
you?
What about this show today?
Yeah. Oh, my Lord. I am actually irrationally excited. Maybe it's not irrational.
It's not irrational.
Like, sometimes people in our position get on and they say that. I mean it.
Yeah.
Like, looking at the lineup, I'm like, I get to talk to these people.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
But also I get to hang out with you, which
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
super
you're all right.
love. Yes. But our lineup, we have three incredible women who
Yeah.
bring brilliance and creativity. And I think, too, each of them kind of stare humanity in the face.
I totally agree. It's what I'm excited about is the combination of the creativity and depth. You know, like there's creativity in some people, there's depth in some people. It's magic when you get both.
It's right. So we are talking about host of Undressed with Kathryn Eisman. Her name's Kathryn Eisman. She's joining us. Actor, playwright Virginia Gay, who... would you be okay?
That's all I'm saying.
That's all you can right now. And artist, musician, writer Bertie Blackman. All three of those wonderful women are joining us today. It's super exciting. Whilst we're talking about wonderful women, I
Yes.
wanted to share something with you that I read on the Insta.
Can I preempt this?
Yeah.
Just a warning for the viewers and listeners. There's an Oprah quote coming.
More than
Right?
one quote.
More than one.
This is from Oprah's Insta. And look, if you are a human who doesn't love Oprah, I mistrust you.
Look, they are there, but I think you and I are of a certain age.
Yes.
And we would have grown up, really. And I don't mean grown up, childhood grown up. I mean
no.
properly grown up in your sort of 20s.
Yes.
We grew up with Oprah.
Quite literally, I was at university.
Yep.
I was doing an arts degree, so I
Yeah.
had a lot of time on my hands.
Ding, ding.
I was in my first share household.
Yep.
And I would just spend days watching Oprah.
Bit of Dr. Phil, bit of Oprah, bit
Yeah.
of DP.
That was my day.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
heaven.
yeah.
And she really taught me to love myself in a different way.
Oh, that's a big call.
Don't you think?
For me, it's mixed because she did all the, like, you know, the fat truck and all of that kind of stuff. There was a lot of body
Right.
loathing stuff that I took from
that's
it.
interesting.
But I also took a lot of empowerment stuff. I
But
get that.
that was the time, though, wasn't it?
It
Like, it's a
was, yeah.
different time.
Yeah, yeah.
We see body shapes
Yeah.
completely differently to the
Yeah.
lens we were in back then.
Yeah.
Which was bad.
Yeah,
Let's face it.
really bad. And I wish it was even better than it is. But yes, you're right.
Yeah.
That was the de rigueur.
It certainly
what's she got to say for herself?
all right, this is from Oprah. Ways to say no for people pleasers.
Oh, I've never met a people pleaser. I don't know any women in their 40s who say I might have been socialised to people please.
certainly not middle children like myself.
No,
not a people
you're not a
pleaser.
good girl. What are you talking about?
Oh my
All right,
God.
so let's say theoretically you were raised to be a people pleaser.
Oh, okay.
How could you say no?
And one of the things I love about Oprah, I remember her saying, seeing her live show, and she said, when people ask her to do things, she taught me to say, I'm not going to be able to help you with that.
Yes.
Which I quite liked. Yes. Just as a blanket statement. But now
Yes.
she's broken it down. And here's a gift for you today. One of these might work for you if you have trouble saying no. First
Just
one.
before you say them, can I just say, because I feel like I joked then. We did joke a little bit about it. But in all seriousness, if you were raised, as you and I have talked about before, to be a people pleaser, saying no feels like death is too far. But, it's very hard.
It quite literally makes me want to vomit.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I can, even now
we can
thinking about it
trivialise
now,
it.
I can feel it in my limbs. It's almost like an adrenaline where you
Yes.
I just don't feel well.
So
at
we're
the
taking it
thought.
seriously because it is actually genuinely hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
And it's a muscle.
Yes. It's a neural pathway that sends panic.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you've got a game plan, which is what we're going to give you, or Oprah's going to give you, that's helpful.
And what I've learned about that neural pathway is the reason you panicked is because you perhaps were in an environment where to say no was so deeply frowned upon that you
Wounding.
you were kind of, you were banished from the family
You cast
emotionally.
from the pack. If you think of a pack of animals, you cast from the pack for asserting a boundary.
And punished
Yeah.
and
All right,
shamed.
tell me how to say no.
Okay.
So I'm going to say, Joe,
All right.
I want you to come over and clean out my pantry.
I wish I could, but there are other things I need to say yes to. How good's that? I wish I could, but there are
You've got
other...
more important things to do than my pantry.
That's right. Here's a second one. This isn't the right time for me, but I do have some resources that might help. That one I don't love so much because
Yeah.
I have been trapped in finding resources to the
Yes.
point where I think I should
Yes.
just have bloody said yes because it's taken me so
Can
long.
I reinterpret that? I'd
Yeah.
love to, but I'm not your mum. There's an element in that one of kind of going, I'm going to mother you, right?
Yes, yeah.
I'll fix it for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
And-
people pleasers are also fixers.
Oh, totally.
We've got to let that go.
All right, here's a third one. Thanks for thinking of me. It sounds cool, but I'm trying. I'm trying. Are you laughing at my tone?
No, it's because I'm going to the pantry. I should have given a better example. All right, Joe, I would like you and I to write a book together.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for thinking of me.
Yeah.
It sounds cool, but I'm trying to limit my commitments to save myself from eating myself.
Does she mean overeating or literally?
I think, look, it could be either
It
what
could
she
be
means
either.
there, but I love that.
Yeah.
I have become better at saying thanks, but I have set up a boundary this month.
Yes.
But that leaves the door open for next month. I need to be more.
No, see, I reckon in that situation, I am so flattered. Thank you for thinking of me, but I just haven't got the time for that at the moment.
Yeah, no capacity.
No capacity.
No.
Just be honest.
Yeah. Number 4, I'd love to, but since it's work, I will need to be compensated. That's a ripper. Because
Look.
people always ask women to work for free.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I've become really good at that. And I think as self-employed performers, especially if you do lots of I say this with love and affection, loony, lefty, social justice-y kind of things, you're asked constantly to work for free.
Always.
And sometimes then guilt-tripped if you won't. And I've become very firm with that because I think the women coming after us, we set the precedent.
Absolutely.
If I'll do it for nothing, then they have to do it for nothing.
And that's not the only reason, but it is one of the reasons why there's a gender pay gap.
100%.
Yeah.
And do you pay, for example, in our context, but it'll be the same for lots of viewers, do you pay the security guards? Are you paying the caterers? Does the tech get paid? If they get paid,
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting paid.
Yeah. Well done. Okay, and the last one, which I like, thanks for asking, but I just don't do that. Whatever that is, yeah.
Do you know the equivalent? And I reckon this is a next generation thing that I hear. I've got a 15-year-old daughter and I've really tried to teach her just to go, no, thank you.
Oh, I love that.
Now, that's really hard as her mum because I want her to say yes to everything I say.
Yes.
But in terms of sometimes you don't need to give a reason. Like we also over-explain.
Yes.
It's okay, especially if you're raised people pleasery, just to go, no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. In my head, I think, oh, nah.
Yeah. Yeah, nah.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah. Oh, nah.
But I hear you as far as because my daughter, I'm like, oh, I'm raising her to be defiant and have her own mind.
Yeah.
But then just get in a bath. When I asked,
Oh,
like as a child,
please.
and I'm like, I don't get to pick and choose when she's defiant.
No, you don't.
I
And
don't.
those being able to stand up for yourself is like an important life skill that a lot of us weren't given, frankly.
It's true. So there you go. Take that in your day, in your life, if that's useful
Just
to
say
you.
no.
Thanks for joining us, by the way. If you're joining live, you can join the conversation, Facebook or YouTube. Share your comments and
They
your
might
thoughts
have
and your
tips.
feelings.
Pe-
On
you
how to
know,
say no.
How do you say no, and in
I
what
love that.
situations?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us. Do you just go, nah?
Because the feeling is that you might offend someone. And I always
Do you
think,
know what
why
it
do I
is?
care about them more than me as far as, I want to look after their feelings when really I need to look after myself.
But you answered your own question. It's not that. The feeling is that I might be banished from the pack. That's actually the neural
Yeah.
pathway.
Anyway.
Too far?
No, I'll just have to rock in the corner for a little while. That's okay. You can always catch up on previous episodes of Broad Radio on the Go via our podcast, Broad Radio on the Go, wherever you get your podcasts. And, share, like, tell your mates. That would be really helpful. Let's get to our first guest because I'm so excited. She is the host of a show that I'm obsessed with called Undressed with Kathryn Eisman, and her name is Kathryn Eisman. And the show poses the question, if we change our clothes, can we change our lives? It feels simplistic, but Kathryn, I don't know, I have dived into this show and I love it so much, and it does feel like you are changing these people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for so long, I think it's been accused of being really superficial. It's like how you look, on the surface. What this at and what I delve into, what I'm fascinated in, is to look at the thought process behind why you chose that item. When you went into a shop at any price point, why you picked that particular item and decided to wear it as an extension of yourself into the world. It's an amazing, interesting access point to understand the deepest parts of who we are. And this show, it's really not a makeover show, as you saw. It is about transforming the way people see themselves and then letting them articulate that through fashion so the world sees them as that person too. So yeah, it's not like me coming in and saying, you're an apple-shaped body and you should never wear fuchsia. I'm so done with that. I think we're all done with that. It's the opposite of that.
Oh, Kathryn, I saw a thing the other day that made me want to barf of like, this is what women over 45 should wear. I'm like, oh, I'm out. I'm out.
I'm out. And you were talking earlier about this kind of Oprah and kind of the way that people talked about their body and thin is fabulous, thin is success. And I think that would be for so long I grew up being told like, oh, all these rules and that's inappropriate. And so this is about using fashion as a really powerful non-verbal form of communication. You guys know this, that even though, we're all about speaking and communicating verbally, it's only 7% of the impression that we give. How crazy is that? And over 50% of it is actually our appearance. So what a missed opportunity to not use that tool to convey the messaging you want. But the one I'm most interested in is when you look in the mirror and you say, and you see this on the show and you would have seen this, they look in the mirror and even if they've never actually looked like this before, they look and they go, that's me, and it's so emotional because most of us are walking around not dressed as the me that we kind of secretly hope we could be. And I let them do that.
Look, I just love, the casting is amazing. Every single character that I'm meeting via this show, I fall in love with. My heart breaks for them. So many of them, Kathryn, are women and often mums who just have lost who they are. What is it about? Our lifestyle just means that we shut off parts of ourselves.
Can I just add an addendum to that? Kathryn, you mentioned when you go into the shop to choose something. What I notice on the show, as mums, it's also, then what do you choose out of your wardrobe? Because you might have, that beautiful sparkly top that you loved or the pair of pants or whatever, but do you pick them?
Yes.
To wear to lunch with Joe? That
so
in
true.
itself is interesting.
100%, and you should wear those sparkly pants for lunch with Joe. But
You must.
In fact, I plan on, Joe. I hope you're ready for them. But I think it's so true because when I go into their wardrobe, they're the clues I look for. What are the things that still have tags on? I bet if everyone they've bought something And if you went into your wardrobe right now, you would see that there are these kind of wishful thinking moments. You might even consider them mad moments where you kind of thought, I'll try something. And then you never have the courage to actually put them on. So they hang there like some kind of, hanging kind of, I don't know, cemetery of your wishes and dreams of who your life would be. And so I go straight for the clothes that have the tags on them. And also the sections that you hang on to that are from like, the darker moments in your life that you're scared that you're going to return to, that you really haven't committed to this new idea of who you are. So you keep them there thinking, oh, I might want to be that person again, and say, no, get rid of them, or the visual reminders of bad things. And what you said is so true, Joe, about like mums. The show's definitely not all mums, but as a mum, I know that I call it, the term that I've given it is displacement identity dressing. So once upon a time, you put all this care and attention into dressing yourself with love. And then you have kids, you have 2 seconds in the morning, and you grab the thing from the dirty or clean laundry pile, and you transfer all of that attention and care into your kids. And it's about reclaiming that, but not trying to get back. Oh, it's not like I'm going to get back to my pre-baby body or anything like that. It's like, no, you're better. You're more than you were before you had kids. Who are you now? Let's establish that identity. So you don't miss out on enjoying your kids, because there's these mums who I call it waiting, and they're waiting to get back to this weight where they think they deserve to be worthy of having a good life and enjoying themselves or going to the beach. And it's like, stop waiting, start living, because you're going to look back 20 years from now, 10 years from now, and say, I missed the best part of my life. And how stupid I was. I was beautiful. I was amazing, but it'll be too late. So I don't want to do that. I don't want anyone to do that.
It's interesting that you bring up this term. Well, a lot of the conversations that I want to feel beautiful again.
Yeah.
And even that, like, I feel like I get confused around self-acceptance and this notion, this shallow sort of surface level notion of what's hot and sexy, and actually feeling beautiful, which actually, that's okay to want to feel beautiful, surely.
Of course it is. Of course
it
is.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is so much conversation about, oh, that's vanity, or well, beautiful's I love the word beautiful. I probably overused it in the show, but for me, beautiful isn't just an aesthetic thing. And even though, and that is fine, but the idea of like, it's actually just self-love. It's saying, I look in the mirror and I like what I see. That's beautiful to me, and it's completely subjective. And as we know, is so much of a combination of internal and external, and the energy that you give off. But really, it's like, I mean, what a tragedy to walk through life and just not like looking at yourself, like,
and be waiting.
Like, it's rejecting yourself.
Yeah,
it's rejecting yourself. And then how many opportunities that you miss out on because you didn't put yourself forward. You didn't put yourself out there, whether it be in relationships or professionally, because you didn't quite feel worthy enough to. If you feel beautiful, you'll go for more things. You'll live a bigger life.
And I think, Kathryn, there seems to be, just to Joe's question, there's a big difference between, like, culturally, between the concept of hot, which is, I think, very superficial. And,
well, it's through the lens of someone else's gaze.
Well, it's through a male gaze.
Yeah.
Let's
Yes.
be honest, right?
Yeah.
And beautiful, which is incorporates confidence, love, acceptance. If you accept yourself, you're accepting other people in their differences and their glory.
Yeah.
That emanates, right?
100%. And that's the difference between this show and I think anything we've seen before.
And a makeover show.
It's often been about like getting approval, external approval, like, oh, you look hot, or wow, you look, you've been, turned into a swan, or whatever it is. And this is about self-acceptance and about absolutely loving yourself, accepting yourself. And then also what you'll see is, we see this group of strangers. I've never met them before. They've never met each other before. And they all go into this circle, and they all, have enormous judgments about each other, and who, there's a girl with like face tattoos, and that, she looks scary. And there's this guy who looks like, he's just come off, there's a whole bunch of people there. There's a train driver. And at the end of it, these guys are incredibly close friends because we realize that we're all wearing masks that don't even sometimes reflect who we are. And they get to push through it. They get to be vulnerable. They get to be seen. They see others and they think, maybe I shouldn't make such quick judgments about other people. So it's about how you look, but it's really the opposite of that, actually.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And they are, you can tell they really, because everyone's in tears, right?
Oh, of
so
course.
it's like, it's
because
like the most beautiful.
Seen is vulnerable. In our culture, properly being seen is really raw.
Yes.
Because everything's surface.
Yeah. And they're courageous.
They
These
are.
people are so courageous that they stand there and let you
Yeah.
read just from looking at them. And you do nail it every time.
Are we
and
gonna
they
let
say
her?
that. Yes, so we have sent you,
Come on then.
a couple of, are you okay? We've sent a couple of photos of what Nelly and I are wearing today.
Catherine, can I just preempt by saying I think Jo's rocking 16-year-old lesbian and I love it. I am so here for it.
So we're inviting you to do a reading, not to make it all about us, but let's make it all about us. Because
come on then.
it's the skill. It is for me. It's about the skill of what
set.
you do when you look at what someone is wearing.
Yeah, and that's how it came about. You know, I was speaking with Bruna Papandrea, who is the producer on this with me, and Id Gaha, and she has no interest in fashion by her own admission. And I did a reading for her, and she's a brilliant, producer. Did Luckiest Girl Alive, Nine Perfect Strangers, Anatomy of a Scandal, you name it, everything, all my favorite shows.
Yes.
And she just looked at me and said, "Oh my goodness, this is so great." And she doesn't care about fashion, so it's not about being judged. That's my little introduction before I judge you. Just kidding.
We're judging you just silently.
Well, I invite.
So, Jo, you're wearing like this baby pink jumpsuit, and then you're wearing, you guys can't see, but I saw a photo earlier, and it's like this kind of very chunky black boot, okay? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you've got the cool, like,
Glasses.
pseudo-intellectual glasses, and then the cool signature crop, okay?
Yeah.
So together, I read the totality of someone. So when you wear a jumpsuit, it's someone who likes to get things done. They're a very action-oriented person. They're like, they can't sit on their hand, like they need to just do to almost to a fault, but it's a great quality as well.
Oh, yes.
So
Hello.
there's that, there's that, and that constant drive and being physically moving your body is actually also really important to you. So there's that energy that has that. And that's linked to someone who wears something that is a utilitarian kind of jumpsuit. It also has the fact that you've done pink and you've got the pink nail polish, but then you have something that's kind of almost like a mechanic style suit. The dichotomy between the two is someone who hates to fit into gender stereotypes. So really, really, like I can be, it's like, it's not saying, oh, I want to be like a tomboy. It's like, I can be girly and be a boy. I can be all of it. Let's drop the categories. So that's something that is really evident in your outfit.
Can I say boss bitch?
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, Kathryn.
You can say
go. Yes.
Yeah. And then in terms of the black boots, so really thick sole. And so when someone wears a thick sole, they're usually much more sensitive than people realize. So it's like think of like a storm.
She's going to cry. She's going to cry. It's all right. You can cry. Triana, the producer, is losing her mind.
Triana has our producer has reeled back.
Okay, Kathryn, what sort of voodoo is this? Come on.
Yes, I know. And so it's
have a
someone
little
who is,
cry.
and you can have a cry. And it's basically, they've had to arm themselves a little bit to get things done so that they can operate in the kind of a tough world that they live in. But underneath it, and it's actually a self-protection mechanism as well, because you didn't want to give up your soft soul. You could have. There are many opportunities along this way on this journey where you could have just become hard, and you decided not to, even though it has hurt you sometimes. But you found a way to protect it and still get things done.
Do you know who you are?
It's unbelievable.
Tank Girl. You Tank Girl.
Wow.
That's a 90s reference, but yeah.
I feel really
Yes,
very, very raw, and
Yeah.
that is extraordinary.
Yeah.
Kathryn. What about my
I'll
friend
pay
Nelly
it.
here?
Oh, you can go quickly if you like.
got nothing to say about Nelly. No, I'm just
Thanks,
kidding. Nothing. I'm blank. No. Okay. So Nelly's wearing a kind of, and is it long sleeve? I just want to see for a second. Can you just?
Oh,
okay,
three-quarter.
Three-quarter. It makes a difference. Okay, so a three-quarter, it's almost like a mosaic style top with this geometric prints, bold colors. You've got the cobalt blue, you've got the orange, the yellow, and different shapes. Okay, and then you have the gold earrings. So you're an interesting combination of someone who, interestingly, you don't take anything seriously, and yet you care about things being done to very morally driven as well. So it's this interesting kind of balance.
Oh my God, Kathryn, stop it. That is literally how I would summarise.
That's how I would summarise.
Oh my God.
Keep going.
Okay. Shh, Nelly.
I know, we could do this for hours.
I know.
So, and I think people sometimes misread you because they look at you and you're funny, you're quick, you're kind of irreverent all the time, and they think they don't understand. They miss the fact that at your core, you're like, first you care about history, you care about integrity. You're actually like quite traditional in your essence, and people who would meet you or whatever would miss that completely. But that's actually the center of you, and the other stuff is all the stuff around it that's entertaining, but it's not.
That is
yes,
unbelievable.
Oh, stop it!
Wow.
Yeah.
Kathryn,
you got it.
You do have a gift, and it's one of the reasons why I absolutely love the show. Do check it out. It is Undressed with Kathryn Eisman
on Paramount Plus.
Paramount Plus. It's just awesome, and the people on it are gorgeous and share so much of themselves, and you really see them as well, which is a beautiful thing.
It's decent reality stuff.
It's wholesome. And the best befores and afters, which is why we love it.
The best, and it's not just and then. What you catch up, and right now, because all 9 episodes have dropped, you get to see the reunion episode, episode 9. And I don't dress them for this, so they show up now. Months have passed, and they walk in, and I get to see, and they get to see each other for the first time. Did they go back? Did they go further? What are they wearing? And it is so mind-blowing to see what has happened to these people in a very long-lasting, like intrinsic way, and what has transpired in their life. It's really it is beautiful, and I hope that when people watch it, you never get dressed the same way again.
Yes. Oh my God, I can't wait. Yeah. I haven't. I like about episode 5 right now, so I can't wait for that. Kathryn, thank you so much. It's just been amazing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for letting me read you. Very brave.
We're feeling beautiful.
Oh, well, after that extraordinary moment, are you ready now to introduce a woman who I know both of us are going to fangirl? But let me tell you, I think that the pandemic, which in the way it was experienced in Australia, had quite a few defining moments. And one of them was when this woman performed a monologue on Q&A that was just breathtaking. Yeah. And it was from her show, Cyrano, which had this... It took a year to hit the stage because of what happened going into lockdown. She is Virginia Gay, playwright and actor. Hello, Virginia.
Good morning, my friends. How are you?
Listen to that voice. Oh, Virginia.
That's the voice of a theatre actor who was asleep until 20 minutes ago. This is the middle of the night for me.
Well, I do know you're joining us in the middle of your season of Cyrano, and we're really grateful to you for that. But it did take a year for it to finally reach its audience. And it's a story well told, but it is also breathtakingly kind of a piece in time.
Yeah, as I was writing Cyrano, the world shut down, and I was writing this show about, the old story of Cyrano is a very ugly man who falls in love with a brilliant and beautiful woman, and she loves a beautiful man, and he realizes that the only way he can get close to her is by writing the script with which this beautiful man seduces this beautiful woman, and that's obviously, that's like a kind of proto rom-com, right? That's an essential setup to a rom-com with a love triangle. But as I was writing it and the world shut down around me, I was like, oh, this is the story of somebody who isolates themselves to protect the person that they love. This is the story of somebody who asks less of the world so that the people that they love can flourish and bloom. And that's what we all did for the last 2 years. Like, it suddenly became extraordinarily universal. So everything about the show that I have written into this new version is about that kind of that state of hyper longing that we were all in for so long, how we needed connection but we couldn't get it, so we would take the tiniest bit, because you have to have connection to live, but we couldn't actually get close to the people that we loved. And then just imagining that Q&A speech was just imagining all of the things that we would do again once we could love the people that we loved in the way that we wanted to, the way that we would experience the world.
That's interesting, Virginia, because I remember, watching that Q&A monologue, and I agree with Jo, like, it had such a profound impact, and hearing you talk about taking those moments of connection in a way, like, as a performer myself, I was like, that is one of those moments of connection where that I take for granted. Even as someone who gets to perform, I took that for granted. And watching you do that reminded me of the importance of, lofty things like creativity and humanity and all the longing and all those sorts of things. That connection came through the screen, but it was real.
That's so lovely. That's so beautiful. That's actually, I mean, in the show, it's a duologue. It's a scene between me and Roxanne. And I remember thinking, oh, this is clearly the material that we need to be talking about right now, because Melbourne had just entered lockdown number 6, which we didn't know was going to be the longest one ever. But everybody was so worn down by all the previous ones. So I was like, oh, it has to be hopeful. It has to be connected. So I remember thinking, I'll just learn all the parts of the scene and I'll do it down the lens, and you at home will be my scene partner and we can imagine this together. I remember thinking really consciously, I've got to try and connect with somebody who isn't here.
I was weeping. I remember weeping.
Yeah.
But I've heard you speak, Virginia, a lot about the role that the audience plays in this show. Like, there's a real, for you, that exchange, and the audience being the extra cast member almost is very, very real in this show. Yeah.
That's exactly it. And I actually think that's true of any live performance, but particularly in this case, in a comedy. And you would know this, my friends, you would both know this, that the audience is the final character in a comedy, and every night that final character is different, and every night you learn to read where they're going, learn to lead them in particular ways, are surprised when they respond in particular ways. And that thing about live performance is the thing that we haven't been able to do for 2 years. And I am forever grateful for Netflix and all of the streaming services that got us through the 2 years of isolation. But it's a different engagement. It's a passive thing to sit here and absorb one way what the screen is giving you. What live performance does is say, we are all in a room together. We cannot exist without you. A play without an audience is pointless. It doesn't happen. So we cannot exist without you. We are so grateful that you're here. We understand the risk that you're taking to come here again, especially as we were coming out of the pandemic. That sense of like, there's risk involved in coming to a space filled with other people. But there's so much benefit, as we have learnt, to come back and connect with other people, because when you are sitting there and you can hear a pin drop when somebody's heart breaks on stage, and you can hear an audience go, oh, as something terrible happens, you realize you are not alone in every thought that you've ever had. Every other audience member in that audience is having that thought at the same time and going, oh, could that person, like, could I love in this way? Could I risk this in this way? It's a kind of extraordinary thing. It's an enormously unifying experience. And it's just, I feel like that's the thing that we have missed for 2 years.
Yeah, it's that moment where you go, I remember the love, or I yearn for the love, or I'm in the love.
Exactly.
Well, it's a relationship, isn't it, in the truest sense of the word? Like, the relationship between the audience and the performer. If they don't give, you can't receive, and vice versa. You know, if the person next to you is like storming in a mood, that's going to affect you. If they're open and generous, that's going to affect you.
It's exactly right, and it's an energetic exchange that I see happen every
really
night.
is.
And when people come out, and they say, "I can't stop crying" in the best possible
Yes.
way, or I laughed until I cried and then I laughed again. I'm like, that's it. Like actual energetic exchange, actually communicating with people is
Connection.
just so thrilling.
Yes.
Connection.
Virginia, I have to ask, as a fellow queer lady about town, you've obviously done a rewriting I mean, the way that I would describe it is a queer rewriting of an old text. Why was that important to you to do that?
Well, when I saw a production of Cyrano in London just before the world shut down, and there was a James McAvoy production, and he did it without the nose, and it's the first time I've ever seen the show without the nose. As you know, it's an old text. I've seen many productions, and when you do it without the nose, I suddenly went, oh, this is very clearly queerly coded, clearly queerly coded, which is my new voice.
That's your Tinder profile.
That idea of looking at a body and looking at James McAvoy, like one of the most making handsome men in the world, and you could see that the character had decided that he was unworthy of love, that there was something about him inherently that meant that beautiful, brilliant woman would never love him. And I was like, well, that's queer coding. That's exactly what that is. And I was like, has there ever been a female Cyrano? I don't think so, to the best of my ability. And I also remember thinking, not only do I want to tell this story in a queer way and honour all of those, like, mostly those incredibly awkward and true and important feelings that you have in your teenage years and your early 20s, but also the sense of that I had never seen a role for a woman that asked everything in the way that Cyrano does. So you've got to be incredibly verbally dexterous. You've got to be physically agile. You've got to be the big beating romantic heart of the show, but also you've got to be the great comedian. You've got to run that audience like it's your own hand. Like you've got to be across everything. And I was like, I cannot think of a role like this for a woman. I want to make a role like this for future women to play,
Virginia,
and for future female adjacent people to play, and non-binary people and trans actors. I want to see it.
I say this with deliberate and knowing irony. It is a role full of BDE, right? It is a woman walking on stage with big dick energy going, I own this space. And we don't see that enough.
We don't. And it's pretty thrilling, actually.
Absolutely.
It really is kind of incredibly thrilling to invite people into that and be like, look at this power, but also look at how it has been taught to go hand in hand with self-hate and lack of self-worth, and unlearning that self-hate and unlearning that lack of self-worth is the story of the show, basically. So I think it's really exciting when I hear when I hear women respond to this, because I'm like, we got taught this. We got taught to make ourselves smaller, to chat less, to think less, and we got taught that the world would be easier for us if we were just prettier.
Oh yeah, and that people would like us.
Swear?
Yes, you must.
Fuck that.
Fuck that.
Fuck that. Yes.
But also this notion that you will somehow be more likable if you like yourself less.
Oh,
Isn't
absolutely.
It's just an anathema. That makes no sense.
But even the fact that you walk on stage going, I'm sexy.
Yeah.
I'm sexy and I know it.
Yeah.
Like even that, we're told, don't do that. Everything tells us to do it. Be sexy, wear your bikinis, be a size 8, all the da-da-da. But don't be too sexy. But don't be confident
and at the
sexy.
same time, don't like yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be up yourself.
No, God, no.
We couldn't be more all for it.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, too. I mean, love is the most written about human condition, right? So does that make it easier to write about or harder, knowing that there is such a tradition written about love?
What a terrific question, Jo.
Thanks.
God, I've never consciously thought about that. I would say, I would say it makes it both harder and easier. I mean, obviously because we're always thinking about the need for connection. So and certainly over the last 2 years, I was very, very isolated. I was living in a 1-bedroom flat in LA. So I was really, really thinking about the need for connection and love quite a lot. But I agree, you don't want cliche, and certainly I don't want cliche, but also Cyrano doesn't want cliche.
No.
Cyrano, who loves words more than anything else, would spit on cliche. So you don't want cliche. You want to surprise an audience in the way that you get to love, the way that you describe it, the way that you want to awake an audience's brain with a turn of phrase or a turn of plot twist that makes them go, oh, like surprise synapses. So yes, I actually think the challenge has been, how do you tell this great and famous love story in a surprising and new way, and in a way where I very consciously wanted to make it accessible, to make it approachable, particularly to people who maybe thought that main stage theatre wasn't for them, that I wanted to invite like a younger audience in, and that sense of like how you find accessibility within poetry and accessibility within somebody who loves words.
But see, I think
that's been a real challenge.
Well, because the reason I asked the question is because I think the balance that you struck is that it's surprising, but it's really key that it's relatable as well, right?
Yeah.
So, one of the lines that I remember, and I want to take you to every restaurant in the city.
Oh, that's the line. That was my
Right?
line that I was going to quote.
But because every single person goes, oh,
Yes.
that's exactly how I feel.
Take me.
So it's surprising, but not at the same time.
Yes.
Correct.
Totally. Trying to find the poetry in the everyday was what I was trying to do. And particularly, of course, that list of things in the Q&A monologue, which is like, they were all the things that we couldn't do. The restaurants were shut, that we couldn't travel, all of that stuff that was just like the things that you don't even realize are these demonstrations of love and these demonstrations of togetherness until they are gone and you can't do them.
And I mean, I think on one level, you take a traditional story and you cast Virginia Gay in it, then you've got both the accessibility or the known quantity, and then, and I say this with the greatest amount of love and affection, the loose cannon. Where you go,
yes.
what's going to happen next? I mean, that's
what's
both,
she going to do?
What's she going to
Exactly.
do?
Exactly. And I think obviously the joy in making Calamity Jane, which really did change my career, meant that people go, that loose cannon, get me closer to the firing line.
Absolutely.
Put me in front of the loose cannon. What will she explode now? Who knows? So that's enormously fun to feel like. In fact, I'm thrilled that if you feel like that's my brand, couldn't be more delighted.
That's your brand to me, doll. That's your brand.
And can we have more of it?
Please.
I mean, it's just...
Yes.
It's and I love too, Virginia, that you've identified you are doing these sorts of, you're creating art and theatre like this for younger women, for the next generations. It's like critical. We're all here for that, really.
Correct.
I mean, that's our responsibility.
Right. And it's really important that people feel welcome in spaces, especially spaces that maybe they thought they weren't welcome in. We've got an incredible new artistic director at the Melbourne Theatre Company at the moment. Her name is Anne-Louise Sarks, and she is going to do amazing stuff in this 2023 season. And this idea of like, this is for you. Like theatre doesn't exist in a vacuum. It doesn't exist just for your parents. It exists for you. This is stuff that should be so appetizing. You should want to gorge yourself on the experience of going to theatre, of having a great night out in Melbourne, of going out with your friends or with a date or with your lover and having a glorious time. We should all be gorging ourselves on this because we have been without it for so long.
I know that Cyrano's closing in Melbourne in the next week. Is it touring?
What have we announced? There is a place that it is going to that we are very excited about. I actually think that might be announced later this week.
Okay.
But yes, we close in Melbourne on the 29th of October, and we cannot extend that. So if you have any desire to see it,
go now. mtc.com.au. Get yourself a ticket or 3, because honestly, it's just amazing, extraordinary. Virginia, thank you so much for joining us. It's just been a delight to chat with you as always.
Thank you so much, my
Thanks,
loves.
Virginia.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. Send my love to Bertie Blackman.
Australia's harsh sun is proven to visibly age women by up to 20 years faster than those in the US. That's why you need sunscreen every day. Ask your Chemist Warehouse pharmacist which sunscreen is right for your skin.
Broad Radio. Talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis? We've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Well, there was just a hint of Give My Love to Bertie Blackman there from Virginia Gay as she was farewelling us just then. So we can do that as we welcome this brilliant woman she's an artist, an ARIA-winning singer-songwriter, and now she has released a memoir. Hi there, Bertie Blackman.
Hello, how are you?
Bertie. Virginia Gay sends her love.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard her briefly say that. I was like, oh, my.
Bertie, your memoir, Bohemian Negligence, is about your childhood as a daughter of iconic artist Charles Blackman. And I feel like I'm wondering whether this is a story you were asked to tell many times before you finally told it. What has prompted you to tell it now?
I think people have been asking whether I was going to write this story for a long time, and I felt like I got pregnant, actually. Well, not accidentally. Decided that it was time to have a baby, and when I conceived our child, I was like, I really need to get this memoir done before I have him, because there are a lot of things that kind of happened in my childhood that are a little bit tricky, and I felt like my way of seeing the world was going to change a lot from from having Rumi. So it was really important to me that I got this down in that time, and I'm very actually grateful that I did, because I think when you become a parent, the world does change in some ways, especially when we're thinking about childhood and experiences and how these things kind of make us who we are.
Bertie, that's such a fascinating answer, because I think one of the things that they don't tell you in all the parenting books is that any unresolved shit you have with your own parents or your childhood is about to punch you in the face. Right? This was the most surprising thing to me when I had my first daughter. I was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with, I was not done with this. So that was very, very clever of you to do that.
Yeah, it all comes back up in a different way. And I think that's, Bohemian Negligence was written from the point of view of a child. And I think that I still wanted to be that child when I wrote this book. And I still feel like that child, but now I'm a mum too. So I think it's interesting. I mean, half of the book was written after I had Rumi, but they were the chapters that were a little easier to write that I wrote then. Was, touches on some things in the book that happened in my childhood that were very difficult. And I think that's been just a bit too confronting for me to look at my boy and think about that too, as well as write it down at the same time.
So starting with because the title is intriguing, fascinating, very clever. And we're all interested in the Bohemian part, of course, because of your history. But the word that stands out for me, obviously, is negligence. So how do you frame negligence in terms of your child? I mean, going into as much as or as little as you want, what does negligence mean in your context?
I think in my context, I think the word bohemian next to it, the word, negligence on its own is it's a hard word. And I had a very, what I would describe as free-range childhood. Imagine chooks going out into the yard, they're kind of hanging out and doing what they're doing. And everyone, it's more like kind of you're out in the community doing as you are. And so I think that when there's not that kind of hyper-vigilant parenting, you've got to be home by this time, calling every hour when you're staying at a friend's house, things can happen. And my parents were brought up in the same way, where there was just a lot more freedom. I played on the street all the time, went and stayed at friends' houses for a couple of days. Mum was just like, you must be fine, and I'd call and check in. But it's also how she was raised, and my dad was raised in a very similar way. So, and I think that with that kind of free rangeness and that freedom, sometimes difficult things can happen to children in that. And I think that that kind of way of parenting was, again, my parents were modelled to parent. And I think these days that we now know that, there are predators out there, and that we have to, help our children kind of garner a language to be able to know what's up, to kind of be able to speak up if something happens, and to know that everyone is a good person. I guess it's kind of what it puts me lightly. Yeah.
I also wonder if there was sort of a sense of irony for you until you told this story, because people would have looked at your childhood and gone, "Oh my God, she's so lucky. She had, she had this, famous dad, and she had this creativity and free range lifestyle. What an awesome childhood! What a great experience!" And you must have at times. I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, and so tell me I'm wrong. But were there moments where you're like, if only you knew?
I think that at the time, I didn't really feel like it. That wasn't quite right then. But as an adult, I think like that. I think some extraordinary things, happened. My dad used to cross-dress and take me to school. I would be able to pick his bra size from the fruit bowl, and he'd be like, grapefruits, lemons, or oranges, and I get to pick his bra size, and then he'd put on a frock and take me to school, and I just thought he was the coolest man that ever lived. He taught me how to cook spaghetti properly it was like, the way that the spaghetti is cooked is you've got to throw it up on the ceiling, and when it sticks, you know that it's done, and I looked up at the ceiling, there's dry spaghetti all over everywhere, and he's dressed up as a vampire at the same time too. So there's a lot of beautiful kind of absurdity in the life that I was living at the time. But yeah, there were, a few moments that were not so great. So I think in writing this book, I then discovered more of those moments too. And I think that we shuffle things away because we were our parents. And there's definitely been some kind of boundary grey area that I have been confronted with my relationship with my father, and having, sort of brought all that up again, I guess I'm now kind of filtering it through, figuring out how I still feel about it all.
Well, it's interesting, Bertie, and I think, Jo, you'd relate to this, and I'm sure you will as well, Bertie. All three of us live creative lives now, I guess, so you're exposed to lots of different ways of living. And one of the things I notice is that the kids that I know from very traditional families look at my family or other creative families and are like, "Oh, I wish we had that." And I know so many kids especially comedians who are like going to gigs at night and, touring and stuff, going, "I just want to sit at the table and have dinner together and play Scrabble." And not to dismiss the negligence at all, because I think that really comes through. But is there an element of anything you don't have, you kind of want? I think grass is green and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like all I wanted when I was a kid was like a white bread Vegemite sandwich.
Yes.
And like frozen pie dinner at home, and and life was just not like that. I remember I went to school and Mum had like made pesto from scratch, and there's all this yellow capsicum in there, and I was looking at this thing going, yuck, all I want is this plain food. But I guess that's a one kind of moment where I definitely looked at the other munches and I was like, I must be a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't food so fascinating? I remember talking to Christos Tsiolkas, the author, and he had the same experience where he'd go to school and he'd have this amazing Greek food, that we would all salivate over, and he'd be there going, "Why can't I have a Vegemite sandwich?" Because it means something.
Yes.
It means something.
Yeah. It represents family, your family and your heritage and where you come from. So now though, as a parent, what does that creativity give you when you're making choices? I know Rumi is very little still, but does it allow you to make conscious choices as to how you will parent?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's like, I want Rumi to have a childhood like mine. I want him to have all of that colour and that freedom in many ways. And I often kind of wish in a way that my life was more bohemian. Sometimes I feel like it's a bit boring for him sometimes, but you know, I'll try my best to dress up like a vampire and run a rock and throw spaghetti. Just make things more absurd to him. You know, his mummy is a writer and a musician and a painter, so there are always going to be, you know, interesting people kind of coming through the house. He's got interesting people in his life, and you know, a lot of paintings on the walls.
Oh, do you? What about that behind you?
Yes.
Both of those pieces behind you.
Yeah.
I know, I'm very, very lucky.
Can you introduce those two pieces to us?
I can. The blue one, hang on if I move this way,
Yeah.
is by my dad, Charles. And then the dark one over here is by my mum, Genevieve. They're both beautiful paintings.
Yes, extraordinary. What you are a musician, singer, songwriter, writer, and of course an artist as well. All very different mediums, but connected by you and your voice. But do you have a preference? One that you feel easier or harder to do?
I think predominantly I am a storyteller. So all of those worlds fall into just a different application, I guess. And I did self-question a lot because, you know, for a solid decade, I did nothing but music. And when I needed to kind of have a little bit of a break from it, I did question myself. I felt a bit lost for a while and I didn't know who I was. And then it just felt right when I started to paint. It felt right when I started to draw more. And I realized that it all kind of comes from the same place and doesn't matter the application really, as long as it's, for me, it's the strength of the storytelling and the narrative and the curiosity and the words. You know, that's what really makes me tick. And sometimes it comes through sound and sometimes it's silent and sometimes it's a drawn line. So I feel very lucky that I was given a few of these ways to express that too. And it's not just music, you know. I feel grateful that I can sit down for an afternoon and draw and it feels just as good.
You got lots of ways to get it all out. I wonder, in terms of, you know, becoming a mum, which seems to be a defining thing, you know, for you, for me, for you as well, that kind of expression, the creative expression, there is a big element in any creativity of exposure and vulnerability and rawness. Do you think you have changed? Like, are you conscious that Rumi will read your book one day, will listen to your songs, will see your art? Like, has it affected it or has it not? I mean, what's the go there, Bertie?
Well, you know, just a soft exposure of your soul, you know. My son,
Is that all?
well, now I know all about you, Mum. You know, like the book particularly, I am very conscious that he will read that one day, and I will, you know, talk to him about that when he does. But I think, you know, like I was in the cover of Spectrum a couple of weeks ago, and I went to the news agent and got a copy, and he was like, "Mama, Mama," and he like looked and pointed at the cover. When he sees me on TV, on, you know, music videos playing, he gets really excited. So I can see that he really likes art, and it's really nice to see. I didn't think about that really at all, and when I had him, you know, I don't know, it's a funny thing to see him recognise me somewhere else. It must be kind of strange for him too. But I also had a similar experience as a child as well. And my experience of having a very famous father, I always felt very proud. So I hope hope I don't embarrass him too much.
No, but you must. You must embarrass him. That's our role as parents, is to embarrass our kids.
But also, you'll just be cringe regardless of what you do. Like, I can tell you, as having a 15-year-old, you just cringe. Good, bad, or otherwise. Yeah, it's okay. Just forge forward.
That's right. We'll do our best.
Yeah.
Well, Bertie, congratulations on the book. I can't wait to read it because, you know, your family represents iconic sort of history of art in Australia. That must feel, I don't know if you feel the weight of that, but it's kind of, you know, there's a big heritage that comes behind your story. But I'm looking forward to hearing your words as well.
Yeah, I think there are some really beautiful moments in that book where I'm also watching my father work and kind of just him weave in and out of his worlds. And I think that did speak to someone else who was very excited to kind of, as a big, huge fan of my father's, know him a little bit more. And I hope that I kind of was able to share a different side of Dad that people haven't seen or known before.
Well, and I think for me, Bertie, and I imagine for other listeners as well, the entry point is, I mean, it's partly that, but it's also, I'm fascinated by this idea of, you know, is it free-range parenting, or were we neglected, or is it a little bit of both? You know, as a child of the 70s, I remember, for example, watching Jaws.
Yeah.
Now, you look at that and you go, okay, maybe my parents were just letting me be exposed to some stuff, or you go, oh, maybe they just didn't notice.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
how do you kind of reconcile that, especially when you become a parent? And I think that's for me, that's the entry point to your memoir.
Yeah. And I think that there's nothing wrong with it being a little bit of both. I don't think that anyone's ever going to be able to escape that, because you can't protect from everything, and kids are going to find their way in and through into stuff that you don't know about. It's their kind of job in life. So I think that it's something that I'll be questioning for now forever. Now I have a child of my own, but certainly when I did reflect upon a lot from my own as well.
But I think it's really lovely, the love that you express when you say that your parents weren't modelled with parents.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so
Yeah.
there's that forgiveness that we all have to find.
And it doesn't have to be blame.
No.
But it can just be, this is my experience.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
really how I want to tell it. And I think that, you know, especially for my mum, who is still alive, who read this book, and we've had some good talks about all of it and what that means and what that means to her, and her reconciling her feelings on a number of things. It's been very healing for the both of us. And then, you know, she then reflected on her childhood and her mother and how she was parented and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's been, really a beautiful experience that way. And I hope that for readers, they can go through those kind of pathways and questions too.
Yeah, it's a gift. Thank you so much,
absolutely.
Bertie. It's just been a delight to chat with
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Bertie.
Thank you. All right. See ya.
Have a great
Bye.
day. Oh, how
Oh,
lovely.
wow.
God, I've loved this show.
Just like a creativity bomb.
I know.
And I must admit, and you know, she'll be used to this, so I'm not like throwing shade, but I was skeptical about Kathryn. Even though I've watched the show and I enjoy it and I love the process, there's a part of me that kind of goes, oh, how much can you really, you know, tell about clothes? And then you and I both sit here in a puddle going, what?
Reeled back.
Have you had an investigator on me? I mean, and then Virginia, come on. Like,
Yeah.
I just want Virginia to be my best friend.
I know. Well, I'm sure that she would be.
And Bertie, just you can feel the creativity and there's a beautiful, like, raw pain and joy mixed together.
Yes, which is what I love about her music.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
electronic pop that's got
Yeah.
this sort of shadow behind it that I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just, you know,
Yeah.
best kind of music is that.
And you're pretty good yourself, Jo.
Oh, babe, I love doing this show with you. You're just fun and deep at the same time, which I think we can tell by your top.
With the geometric dress. It's a dress, actually, but anyway.
Oh, yes, it is a
Yes.
dress. Hey, thanks for sharing
thanks
the
for
show with
having
me again. I know that you're loving 9 Perfect Strangers as well, which...
Did you notice Virginia mentioned it? Was
yeah,
it
because
Virginia?
Bruna... No.
It was.
Oh, yeah.
Someone mentioned it.
It was Kathryn
It was
Eisman who
Kathryn
mentioned
mentioned
it. Her show was produced by the same producer as
look,
9 Perfect Strangers.
I couldn't love it more. If you are into all the sort of things that we talked about, but particularly if you're in middle age, you know, when a lot of reckoning happens, I think, with
Yeah.
yourself. Look, I couldn't recommend it more. I don't want to bang on about
Yeah.
it too much. I'm a huge fan.
I did love the book.
Right.
Of
I haven't read
course,
the book.
It's a very popular book. But yeah,
Yeah.
Bruna Papandreou, who's the producer, who's
Right.
responsible for some amazing series.
yeah.
She's done great things and is
Yeah.
continuing to. So yeah, cheers to
Yeah.
female producers and EPs out there as well.
So it's very interesting. It's beautiful. It's thoughtful. It's made me go, and I've never had magic mushrooms in my life, but it's made me go, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time.
Okay, this is...
Hook a sister up, Jo.
That's just for the next time. And we'll be back. Oh, actually, there is no show next week because it's Cup Day in Melbourne. We're having a well-deserved sleep in, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Mr. DJ, you'll get me through. Anytime you can save me. Under those lights, you turn it on right. heat. You're on fire, baby. Still drinking too much has got you losing your